Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I'm here to give you a criminal profiler's analysis of the new Netflix documentary series, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? Well, I can tell you, it's not the Ramseys. Now you can skip the 3 hours because this has nothing to do with unbiased uh, documentary kind of thing where you're going to bring forth evidence and you're going to get different experts to discuss that. Oh, no, this is a 100%, I got to think John Ramsey is behind this whole thing, or he wouldn't do the show unless he signed some document that said you're not going to say anything bad about me or my wife or my son. Hey, it better be 100% we didn't do it, because that is what this is. So it's absolutely 3 hours of boredom, because it just goes back over all the things that the defense would have said, that John Ramsey has been saying for, oh my goodness, ever since he goes to Crime Con. Every time he shows up any place, John Ramsey spends his time, just like O.J. Simpson, defending himself and never looking for the killer. It's always about everybody else has done us wrong. The police were awful. The media was awful. Okay, the media was awful. Everybody did us wrong except for a couple people who believed in us. And we also, I, John Ramsey, and my wife Patsy, when she was alive, we did no wrong either. We were just parents of a murdered child who were doing the best they could. And that's what this documentary is all about, for 3 hours of that. Now, what they basically do is they bring in John Ramsey to say how he was, how he and his wife had to suffer through what happened, not mostly not about his daughter, but about how they were treated by the police and by the media. And so that's a portion of it. And then there's the whole media is just awful, which again, I agree with. And then there's a whole third segment, which is let's roll out every pedophile that ever had connection to the case that was never actually had anything to do with the death of JonBenet. And they roll all that out. And then at the end, it's like, you see, we're still looking for the killer. Okay. Hey, yeah. It was torturous. I don't really recommend you watch it unless you just want to get propaganda. Now, I'm not saying that there could not be someone who murdered JonBenet outside of the Ramsey family. However, if you're going to do a documentary, we're going to have in-depth discussions of the evidence. This is not it. This is just a propaganda piece from one side, which is the defense, and John Ramsey. So, I also want to point out something else I watched recently. Somebody asked me to look at this. This is Crime Junkie. They're now not only a podcast, but they're on YouTube. And they did this exclusive. JonBenet Ramsey's father talks with Ashley Flowers, host of Crime Junkie. Oh my God, another hour and 30 minutes of the same stuff. And Ashley, I think maybe you're new at doing interviews, you got him on your show, but you didn't challenge him. You let him give his what he wanted people to know without asking him important questions. And sometimes when you did ask him a reasonable question, he started answering, you kind of interrupted with your own thoughts on it and how you would have behaved or whatever. And that kind of distracted from what he might have said. But so that was kind of a difficult 1.5 hours as well. So 4.5 hours of my life gone. But anyway, I want to get into what I see as some of the major issues that are constantly ignored. And the biggest issue is the ransom note and how John and Patsy reacted to it. I'm going to get into that along with some of the other issues in what I heard during this 3 hours and also during the other show, the interview. Before I get started, please do subscribe to the channel. Hey, come on now. Check my playlist, because I have a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with JonBenet Ramsey. However, I do also want to recommend, because I'm not going to do all the links in the description, because nobody ever pays attention. If you want to know what else I've done on JonBenet Ramsey, please go to the search engine on YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown JonBenet. And you will find things where I talk about Gary Oliva, where I talk about the DNA testing, where I talk about, more touch DNA stuff. I have a lot of stuff I've talked about in the past about this case. So go check it out. All right. But this is the most important thing right here and right now. Things that really stand out to me. And it's interesting to me because what I find the Ramseys do is exactly what I found the McCanns did. The parents of Madeleine McCann, who's been missing forever. Very similar. And how their behavior is not normal behavior of parents who have a missing or murdered child. It's not normal. I don't care how many people say, people behave in different ways. They do, but they don't do what these two sets of parents did. They don't. What's similar with the same two sets of parents is this. They wouldn't cooperate with the police. They took no responsibility for their own actions. And they don't seem to care about actually catching the killer. These three things. And I'll get into what I see in the JonBenet Ramsey case. All right. Let's go back to the morning where Patsy Ramsey wakes up and she comes down the stairs. And for some reason, the guy who killed her child in the basement and wrote a 3-page ransom note decides to leave it on these stairs that are between these circular stairs, spiral staircase between upstairs and the kitchen, which is a kind of weird ass place to put something. Now, if you want people to see something, you put it where you absolutely know they're not going to miss it. Because if they came down another staircase, they might not have seen that thing for days. Why would they put the ransom note there? And I want to point this out because what you'll always hear is that Patsy Ramsey found the ransom note on those stairs. How do we know? That's her claim. We have zero idea if she actually found any papers on those stairs. She could have said she did. Doesn't mean she did. Because if the Ramseys were involved in writing this in any way, she could have just simply had it laying on the kitchen counter or in an office or in her bedroom and just claim she found it on the stairs because that made a good story. Just saying, we don't have proof they were actually on the stairs, but it was a stupid place. The guy has abducted the daughter out of her room, taken her all the way down to the basement. And he's already written this note prior to even taking her down to the basement, according to anything that makes any sort of sense. And then he runs back up and lays this on the staircase. Okay, wait a minute. Let's stop right here. Let's look at logic. All right, so imagine you are not the Ramseys, but actually somebody else who came into the house and took JonBenet and took her down to the basement. Let's assume that's true. So you've waited, you crawled in the house. And I'll get into how he supposedly crawled in the house, even though John Ramsey says he left all the doors open. But this guy's going to go in the backyard and pull up a grate and climb in a little tiny window. Okay. But anyway, he gets into the house and he waits and he waits and he waits and he waits. It's a really weird time of year to do that because, they're not coming home at a normal time. They're out partying. It's Christmas, they're having a good time. I'd pick a normal day when I know pretty much it's very simple and I wouldn't pick that day. But anyway, this killer picks that day. So now he crawls in the house. He's hiding. First of all, he goes up and he writes this long ransom note because he's intending to get money off this couple. So he's intending to kidnap JonBenet, theoretically. And then he goes and he must be hiding back in the basement. So anyway, the family finally comes home and they're cheery and happy and laughing and joking. And they're getting ready for bed and all the things they do. And there's some pineapple eating in the kitchen. All kinds of crap is going on for a really long time. Finally, everybody gets in bed. And Mr. JonBenet killer, who's intending to kidnap her, says, aha, they're finally asleep. According to Lou Smith, he takes his stun gun and he sneaks up to the bedroom. Now you wonder, how did he find the bedroom? And there's a good explanation for that. He's in the house so freaking long that he probably could have explored every nook and cranny. I will agree that's possible because you get bored. And so why not just go through every room? You find out where JonBenet's room is and where the brother's room is and where the parents' room is. You just, you're bored. So you're going through the whole house. I'm okay with that. And by the time the parents come home, you know exactly where JonBenet is and where they are. Okay. But now it's quiet. So you think this is your opportunity. So you sneak up from the basement all the way around the house to JonBenet's room. You take out your stun gun, whack, whack, you knock her out. And she doesn't scream because I always find that a lot of people scream when they get hit with a stun gun stuff. But hey, okay. Anyway, she's quiet. So then he picks her up and he carries her out down the stairs. Now, mind you, he's supposed to be kidnapping her. Kidnapping. I'm sorry, but if I'm kidnapping, I'm not going to go down into the basement. Are you kidding me? What I'm going to do after I've left my letters on the staircase where maybe nobody will find them for a couple of days, I'm going to take that child and walk out a door. Walk out a door. Why the hell are you going down to the basement and trying to climb up on a piece of luggage and shove JonBenet through a window and shove yourself through the window? Who does that? Nobody does that. That's why the police were suspicious of the Ramseys. So we have this guy who just doesn't go out of the house in the simplest way, which is just walk out a door. If worse comes to shove, pull up a window and just go out an easy window. Why are you going to go down to the basement? But anyway, he decides to do that. He's now left the letter, the ransom note, on the staircase. And now he's down in the basement. And he decides, well, instead of taking the child out of the house to a private location where I can enjoy the heck out of sexually assaulting her, I'm just going to go ahead right here in the basement. Why not? I'm in a rush. So he decides to get started on this, what seems to be an elaborate procedure of sexual assault. He's already left the ransom note on the stairs. How does he know? Because, people get up in the night and go to the bathroom. People get up at night and say, I'm hungry and I just want to go down and get some food from the kitchen. I do that. So is it possible? Oh my gosh, is it possible that one of the Ramseys could have gone down those stairs and discovered that note 5 minutes after you left it? Are you really going to be down in the basement, sexually assaulting their child for half an hour to an hour? And the possibility is that the family will find that note. They'll start searching. They'll call the police. The police will show up in 5 minutes and find you in the basement where you're trapped because unless you can get out that window really quickly, somebody could just crash into the basement and maybe they have a gun. Maybe they will keep you. Maybe they'll find you there. And isn't that ridiculous? Who would do that? So either he's going to take the child out of the house quickly and sexually assault her elsewhere or never at all because he's out after the ransom, or he's not going to leave the stupid note. He's just going to go down and take her. Sometimes kids do get sexually assaulted in their beds by somebody who breaks into the house. It does happen. And the Ramseys are sure to let you know that. But if you don't do it in the bedroom, you might want to pull the child out, take her to someplace a little more secluded, rape her, and get the hell out of there. But you don't leave a 3-page ransom note. You don't do that. So this whole ransom note thing on the stairs is something that the police said, this doesn't make sense. And then, okay, let's see. Now this is another very interesting thing. After finding the note that says in the note, if you call the police or the FBI or tell a stray dog, we'll kill JonBenet. We're watching you. We're watching you. And if you do any of these things, we will kill JonBenet. There's 2 men watching her, and then there's me, So one of us could be outside your house right now watching you. If you call the police and they show up, your daughter's dead. You know what the Ramseys did? They read the note, or as Patsy says, just the beginning of the note, and they immediately called the police without hesitation. Without hesitation. Now, I can tell you, people who get a ransom note like that, and they're thinking their child or their loved one, whoever it is, husband, wife, child, whatever, is in the hands of somebody who has kidnapped them and says they will kill them if you call the police. They don't want to call the police. They do not want to do that. They believe, oh my God, if I do that, they're dead. I would be responsible for the murder of my loved one my child, I can't do that. I will have to get that money. And the police will tell you a lot of times if you get that money and give it to them, they're dead anyway. But for a family member who is in that situation, they don't care what the police say that, oh no, I have to do what I have to do to save my loved one. And the police have to convince them, or a friend has to convince them, you got to let us take care of things. You got to let us do what we can do to find your loved one, because if you pay the ransom, chances are they're dead anyway. So the police understand this, and some other people understand this, but families in that moment do not get that. But the Ramseys had no concern about their child being killed because they didn't follow those directions. And the police roar to their house, and they're still not concerned. They're going, oh, they find by then they find JonBenet in the basement, and they're just, oh my gosh, Meanwhile, the phone call. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back to the 911 call. Patsy in the 911 call says, we have a kidnapping. We have a kidnapping sounds just like the ransom note. It is like a story. We have a kidnapping. Who says that? Your child's been kidnapped. You say, my child's been kidnapped, or our child's been kidnapped. My daughter's been kidnapped. You don't say, we have a kidnapping. That is so bizarre. All right. Next thing happens, Patsy calls a bunch of friends over to contaminate the crime scene. Now, somebody has removed your child from your house. You should know that's a crime scene. Well, the police should have known that and done a better job protecting the crime scene, but okay. But the child has been removed from your house. The only thing you really care about at this point in time, because you don't want the kidnappers to know what's going on. It's bad enough you called the police right away and they're going to roll on in. But the last thing you need is all your friends rolling in cars and rushing into the house. Just simply letting off the information that your child has been kidnapped, so the kidnappers would know that you let everybody know. And on top of that, they disturb the crime scene. That is not normal behavior. McCann's did the same thing. They had all their friends come in and roll around. Yeah. All right. John, okay, the phone call was supposed to come in. I think it was 10 o'clock. The kidnapper said they were going to call in the morning, I guess, and the next day at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock comes, and John Ramsey doesn't get the phone call, and he doesn't react. This really sent out a red flag to police, who said, that's not normal, because at 10 o'clock, the kidnappers are calling you about your daughter. You're gonna ask if your daughter's alive. You want to hear your daughter's voice. You want to tell them, I'm getting the money. 10 o'clock comes, and no phone call, and you go, whatever. Now, John Ramsey, especially in this, I think he explained it in this little discussion here, that when that happened, he just realized he didn't know whether that the writing in that and the ransom note meant the next day. What did it mean? Did it mean 10 o'clock that morning or the 10 o'clock the next day's morning? Because it was a little confusing because of the time the note might have been written. So at that point, he goes, well, maybe it actually meant 24 hours more from now to the next day's. Get out of here, John. Your daughter is in their control. I don't care if you thought it could be 24 hours later. You're going to be freaking out because they didn't freaking call. They didn't call me. What do I do? And the police might have to say, well, maybe they meant 24 hours later. They might have to tell you that. But they're going to have to pull you down off the ceiling, because that was your chance to talk to them right away. Just prove that your daughter's alive, but you're okay with, they didn't call. Okay, so I'm just going to go check my mail and hang out because, hey, I got another 24 hours maybe. And of course, the checking mail thing, John Ramsey explains it. He said, he explains it now. I don't know if he ever explained it in the beginning, but Linda Arch, who's there, noticed he was looking through his mail casually, and she's like, what the hell? His daughter's been kidnapped, and he's waiting for this call about the ransom, and he's just going through his mail. Well, he says, I thought since they left a ransom note and they were going to call me, maybe they sent a letter. Really? That's your excuse? First of all, I'm trying to figure out whether there should have been mail even that after. Would mail really come in that early in the morning? Really? Okay. But anyway, casually going through it. If I think there might be something in that mail somehow, some way, I ain't being casual about it. I'm going, like, oh my God. I'd be looking like that. Oh, but he's casual. He's just looking. Maybe. All these behaviors are not normal. They are not normal. These are behaviors of people who already know what happened to their child. They're not waiting for a ransom call. They weren't worried about calling 911 because it didn't matter if the police showed up or not, because their daughter was already dead. Well, she was already dead, but they didn't know that at the very beginning, right? So they didn't know their daughter was already dead. So, or actually, they did know their daughter was already dead. That's my belief. That's why they weren't panicked about the 10 a.m. phone call. They already knew what had happened. And so they knew there was no reason they couldn't talk to 911, call the police, because no one was going to kill their child after the fact because the child was already dead. Or let's say a couple other things. John says he broke into the window in the basement that supposedly this guy used. John says he broke in through that window the previous summer because he had lost his key. Well, and on one hand, and I think it was during this again, he's saying that it was so safe at Boulder in 1996, so safe that everybody just left there. They didn't worry about anything. He just left his doors open and didn't lock windows, didn't lock doors, because they weren't worried. Or let's start with that. These people were rich. He keeps claiming they weren't. They were just like regular people. No, they weren't. They had a big ass house, huge ass house. His company made a lot of money. They spent a lot of money. Get out of here. You're rich. You're living in a rich house. Rich houses are targeted because people in there have stuff. Most rich people I know will lock their doors and put an alarm system on. Maybe you're lazy about the alarm system. I'm okay with that. I can sort of get as pain in the ass. But generally speaking, you lock your basic doors. Maybe you forget to lock a window, which can be used by a burglar. But generally speaking, most people who have a wealthy house and children in it will lock their front and back doors. Unless, let me tell you the unless. If you live in a house with a crap load of people and a crap load of vehicles and big dogs. Okay, so if you have a house where there's more than 2 adults, there's 5 or 6 adults, and there's like 10 vehicles, there's like 4 pickup trucks and God knows what else in there, and there's dogs, big dogs barking around. You got your, whatever, German shepherds or whatever barking around. Maybe, hey, if you have a police cruiser up there, that'll stop them. If you got all that, you might be a little lax. But if you're just 2 people living alone with your 2 children, you 2 rich people with your little children in this fancy house, you're going to lock your doors. But interesting enough, John says, sometimes we just left our doors unlocked because we're so safe in the neighborhood. But then he says this. He broke in through the window in the previous summer because he'd lost his key. Well, why the hell didn't you just come in through the doors and windows that you always left open, John? And then he says, I guess I didn't get the window fixed. Okay. Then he says this, I took the tape off her mouth, then tried to untie her hands. That's interesting. Taking the tape off her mouth makes sense because you found your child looking pretty dead. And the one thing you want to do is save your child. Breathing is the only thing that will save your child, right? She's got to breathe. You rip that off her mouth. I get that as a parent. I would do the same damn thing. But the next step I would take would be CPR if I could do it. If I thought she had a chance, if I didn't know what I was doing, I might rush her upstairs. But the last thing I would do is work to untie her hands. How the hell is that going to help the child? If she's unconscious, I don't think it matters if her hands are tied or not. If she's dying, I don't think it matters whether her hands are tied or not. But he does that. Why? Why aren't you trying to save your daughter? Why are you just trying to untie her hands? Makes no sense. All right. Okay, now the next thing happens. All right, so after this happens, they refuse to talk to the police because the police have some suspicions about them, as did the police have suspicions about the McCanns. And as people will say, well, you should never talk to police because, they'll try to railroad you. and get you to say stuff, and then you get charged with stuff, and you can't take that chance. I get that in other cases except for child abduction or child murder, because the one thing on your mind as a parent is, I don't give a damn what happens to me. I have to save my child, or I have to find out who did this to my child. I don't matter anymore. I have to do that. And I have to convince the police we had nothing to do with it. We had nothing to do with it. Find the people who did it. But they didn't. Just the lawyer refused to talk a lawyer up. And so they did that. And then they hired, like the McCanns, a publicist. They were concerned, as they still are, as John Ramsey still is, about what you think about me. They're more concerned about what you think if I could be involved. I did something terrible to my child. You know what my one sentence response to that would be? I don't give a damn what you think about me. I understand if you think maybe I could be involved. Maybe some of my behaviors have been concerning to you because this is the way I am. But I'm not going to discuss that anymore. All I care about is finding the guy who did this, who kidnapped my child, who killed my child. That's all I care about. I'm not going to talk about anything else. You can talk all you want. I don't have time for it. But they found time for it. The Ramsey found a ton of time for it. They even went on CNN. Didn't talk to the police, but went on CNN. You know what? I thought it was the weirdest thing John Ramsey said. He goes, "Why are we doing this? Because our friends, we've where's the statement? I even wrote that down. John tells CNN that they've been hiding for 5 days. We sensed from our friends that this tragedy, it's not a tragedy, it's a freaking brutal murder, or a sexual murder of your daughter. It wasn't a tragedy. I think, isn't that what McCann said too? Anyway, has touched not just ourselves and our friends, but many people. What? You're doing the CNN interview to make people feel better? Because a lot of people were worried about what happened to JonBenet, and they were so sad. So you're going to do this to make them feel better, not to find the killer of your child? The only reason you should be on that damn CNN show is to catch the guy who did it. All right. They seemed, as I wrote this down, seemed more interested in protecting themselves and defending themselves than finding the killer. And to this day, that's exactly what John Ramsey does. He just goes on and on about how they had nothing to do with it. Now he's got this that says he had nothing to do with it, and the interview that he had nothing to do with it, and Pants had nothing to do with it. The only thing he ever talks about is they should test more DNA. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see. All right, let's go to the claim of the $118,000 bonus. Now, it was so significant that was one of the reasons that Ramseys were looked at. And now the claim is, the guy was in the house so long, he was probably just pawing through everything they had and came across that and said, $118,000, I think I'll ask for that. I was going to ask for $500,000, but I want to be cutesy, so I'm going to make it $118,000. Why? Because all you want, if you're kidnapping somebody for the money, you're going to ask for the money you want. You don't give a crap about what they got for their damn bonus. That was one of those significant things that the police said. All right. Now, the whole note. This is what really irks me. The Ramseys, they found a 3-page ransom note, which was pointed at them. Now, remember, the original note was written on Patsy's pad and started with Mr. and Mrs., and then it was changed into just John Ramsey. And it looked like a practice note, and then it turned into whatever note. So you have a guy, supposedly, if it's not you, the Ramseys, you have somebody who watched you, knew about, was willing to go into your house for this length of time, and then take the pad that Patsy wrote on, do a practice note, and then write a 3-page note which points at you, not as the killers, but in a very personal way. Many things, for example, a fat cat. Guy calls you a fat cat. Well, John Ramsey says in the interview I was watching that he was no fat cat. He was just a regular, ordinary, middle class. No, you weren't, dude. You're a fat cat, and you know it. Somebody said fat cat. Why? Somebody said Southern. How did they know you were from the South? Somebody put in 118,000, and in spite of the fact they probably wanted way more. Why did they pick that? If it wasn't just for kidnapping, there was a revenge element in here, a solid revenge element, a very personal note written with hatred towards you and revenge. So either you wrote that to make yourself look like a victim. One of you wrote it. I personally, at the beginning, it starts out with listen. I've always thought that nobody writes a note and says listen unless they're talking to somebody. They would say, Mr. Ramsey, or I forgot how it started now. It's been a while. Let me look at it. Let me pull up the note. Hold on a second. Where's my note? Hold on a second. Is it here? No, I'm sorry. I've misplaced it. Here we go. It starts out with Mr. Ramsey. It's been a while since I looked at this. I try to stay away from this case just because it gets on my nerves. Mr. Ramsey. That's how it starts. And then it says, listen. Now, if I'm writing a note, I'm going to go, Mr. Ramsey, pay attention, maybe. Or Mr. Ramsey, we've got your daughter. Listen makes no sense because he's not listening to me. It's something written. I've always thought that he might have dictated it, looking at, for example, Patsy saying, okay, Mr. Ramsey, listen. And that's how it was written down. Something like that. It's a personal note. Sounds angry and snarky, which is why some people think Patsy wrote it, because there's a lot of snarky stuff toward John, who I personally think is a very controlling man. I've always had issues with him. He tries to present himself as a nice guy, but I don't see it. I see him as a highly controlling person. And let me tell you something that came out in this, which I thought was interesting. He said that Patsy, after she had cancer, she was in remission, and then it came back 8 years later, and she was clearly nothing was working for her. He says in this that he and Patsy's doctor decided not to continue her treatments because it was pointless, which I get, but they didn't. Patsy says, when is my next treatment? And they lied to her, made her think she was going to get another treatment. So she would just die peacefully eventually and not go through anymore. Wait a minute. Is this legal? She was capable of having a conversation. She was capable of making decisions for herself. And behind her back, her husband and her doctor decided whether she should get treatments or not. I'm stunned. I mean, I'm like, what the heck? That cannot be legal. And you just admitted it in the show. I think that doctor, if that's true, and he didn't ask her what her wishes were, that doctor needs to be removed as a doctor. And husband, there you go, controlling. I made that decision. It's time for her to die. I'm going to make that decision. I don't know. I have issues with John Ramsey. I do. I don't find him nearly as nice as other people do. So if she was involved in writing this note for some reason, he was dictating part of it and told her to finish it up or whatever, the snarkiness in the note, almost hatred toward John, is interesting. Or did John write the whole thing and say, hey, I'm going to make it look like people hate me? Or did he say, should Patsy make it look like people hate me? Maybe so we can push this away from us and it'll look like somebody hated us. Well, it's interesting. So after all of that is done, and it clearly looks like it is not a complete stranger. All those pedophiles they wrote, Gary Oliva and all that crap, all these people that claim they killed JonBenet, but nothing ever. Their handwriting isn't really the handwriting of the note, although Patsy's came up pretty close, but they're not going to say that here. They say, oh, yeah, absolutely not. But anyway, all these other people have nothing against the Ramseys particularly. So why would they write a note like this? It makes zero sense. So the note was either written to get people to think somebody was out to get them, or somebody was truly out to get them and make them suffer. And what is the one thing I never see from John Ramsey or Patsy Ramsey? They have no interest in this note. They have no interest in the circle of friends around them. They just like discount everybody. Oh, yeah, no, whatever. They don't. I have seen families, once they think somebody near them could have committed that horrendous crime against their loved one, killed their loved one, they will accuse everybody. They will accuse the brother, the sister, the cousin, the boyfriend. They will start accusing everybody, wrongfully, mind you, most of the time. But they're so upset and so angry. It's like, who else had access to my house? It must have been you. It must have been you. It must have been you. The Ramseys? They don't seem to be a damn bit interested in anybody who they knew who could have accessed their house. Why the hell not? Why aren't you interested in who wrote this damnable note? Who did this to you and your daughter? Why don't you care? Why are you always saying it's some stranger that just happened to be wandering through the neighborhood, some pedophile? And for whatever reasons, he decided our house. And he went in and he did all this stuff, all this crazy stuff, and wrote a 3-page note based on what, snooping? Get out of here. And Ramseys, because they say in this thing, anybody who thinks the Ramseys are guilty is just crazy or an idiot. Well, call me crazy, call me an idiot. But Ramseys, if anybody suspects you, it's because of your bizarre behavior, your refusal to cooperate, your lack of interest in anybody close to you that could have written this note. You have zero interest. All you have interest in, John Ramsey, is some tiny touch of DNA that could literally come from freaking anybody. It could come from, for example, JonBenet is playing with lots of children. Maybe the reason the male DNA doesn't match anybody is because of some little boy she was playing with who was 3 years old. Children drool, children suck their fingers, and they laugh and they roll, and God knows how much children DNA could be on her. And there's more than just one male. I think, was it 2 male and a female now? So it's like, hey, now there's a whole crew in there. I guess, the foreign faction is a crew of males and females who all came in to get JonBenet and kidnap her and then, screw it up and rape her, sexually assault her on the way out. And, whatever. They're just morons. But all he cares about is, keep examining the touch DNA, but don't look at anybody near us. Don't look at us. Don't look at anybody near us. We're just not interested in that. That's why it seems suspicious. Now, mind you, they will let you believe that only certain experts, like Lou, and his stun gun theory, which isn't proven, that only smart people were in this documentary, and all smart people know that Ramseys have nothing to do with it. But you can check out a whole list of books written about the case, and some of them are written by forensic pathologists who think they were involved. So, and profilers like me who say I cannot eliminate them because there is no evidence of an intruder in that house. The behaviors are not normal for an intruder coming in for kidnapping or sexual assault, and certainly not for both. The behaviors of the Ramseys are so bizarre that it looks more like a cover-up than it does that they're just naive and unsuspecting parents who this horrible thing happened to. And I don't even have to get into whether JonBenet, was in beauty pageants and whether she was dolled up like a woman as opposed to a child. I don't even want to get into that. To me, it doesn't even matter. That's not really an issue. My issue is what I'm seeing in front of me. So to wrap this up, if you want to waste 3 hours of your life, that's a good way to do it. I think that actually this interview was more interesting. Not that it was a good interview, but just because I got a lot of stuff that John Ramsey said, which I thought was interesting. But I'm going to say that it was a pro John Ramsey interview, and I don't know that much was caught by many people in this interview. They would just feel sorry for him, and they feel sorry for him here. And he goes to Crime Con, and everybody feels sorry for him there. John Ramsey loves the media, and he doesn't. He presents things the way he wants to present things, and a lot of times interesting too. That when questions are asked, he fumbles all over the place. And some people say it's his age; he can't remember crap. I kind of get that. But on the other hand, one thing you do remember are things that are that strong in your mind. When you find your daughter dead, when you read that note, which you can still read today, when you can read, literally read everything about the murder, you have to form strong opinions and have to remember them. He remembers very little. He keeps forgetting things which are convenient for him to forget when he doesn't want to answer the question. I would love to do an interview with John Ramsey. And I don't like doing interviews, so it's not my thing. But hey, John, I'll give you a chance. If you want to do an interview with me where we will sit down and you will actually answer the questions I have, might be worth it. Might be worth it. Convince me that up till now, your behavior has been just the normal behavior of a grieving father. I believe you're grieving, but not for the reasons I think you'd like us to believe. So I'm one of those. I'm the criminal profiler that thinks that there is not enough evidence of an intruder in the house and that ransom note is either from your family or someone very close that you don't seem to care about. Do you care who murdered your daughter, or do you already know? That's my question. Anyway, that's it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for being here again. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. Keeps me going. This is an educational channel. And check my playlist for many other cases. I like to analyze cases so people can learn how to analyze crime scenes and evidence. So I hope it benefits detectives, police going into that, criminal justice people, and regular people who just want to understand logic and profiling. And a lot of you have to profile life and profile what goes on around you, including this piece of crap. Anyway, thank you for being here. We'll see what happens. I'm curious to see the reviews on this documentary, or, well, who knows? I'm just hard. Yeah, okay, never mind. I'm going away now. Bye.